So he said to me, well, something about, well, it really isn't personal. And I looked at him and I said, are you fucking kidding me? This affects everything for women.
If you say, okay, well, how come when I ask him to try and put himself in my shoes and understand, what if it were different? What if there was something that happened to him where I did betray him and the disconnect was still there for me even when Katie actually betrayed me?
Tonight's topic is talking about, should I take this personal? And this is a topic that is going to be hard to hear for some people because it's a yes and a no at the same time. I just want to start it off by saying, if you don't know who we are, we're here because we have overcome the addiction to pornography and adult content, not porn. Basically, it's an addiction to just infidelity in other people in general. If you really think about it, it's not just porn that we're dealing with here. But Rick and I went through that process ourselves, and it was extremely difficult. We learned a lot in that time, things that we didn't know, things that we now wish we would have known. And we almost didn't make it through that. But because we continued to work on things and we both continue to want this relationship and be willing to do the work, that's how we eventually made it through, was we were both really willing to do what it was going to take to figure this out. However, I did share earlier, there was a lot of relapses along that journey, and it was so extremely difficult to go through. And then at one point I literally said I couldn't do it anymore. It was the last straw. It was enough damage to me that I couldn't believe and trust that things were going to change and then have my heart crushed again. And so I let him know that if it happened again, that we were going to be done. And there was a period of time then that because of fear and losing the relationship, he didn't talk to me about the truth about the backwards progression he was experiencing. And then he did relapse multiple times and lied about it to me. And that's when, after I did find that out, and he did eventually come forth and tell me, I had to end the relationship with him for a time. And I was planning to be done forever. But thankfully, with enough evidence and him continuing to fight for us and him continuing to show me every day through so much effort, and showing me through connection emotionally that he was making to the pain he had caused me all this time, I was able to see changes happening. And I didn't make him any promises. I wasn't planning to stay in the relationship. But I also knew that I didn't want to make rash decisions that would specifically really impact my boys and their future. When, I knew that outside of this addiction, he was an amazing man, and I didn't want to lose him if I didn't have to. But I also was so scared to trust again and trust that there could ever be anything different. So we took it one day at a time. And, I never made promises. It was just a one day at a time thing. And eventually there was enough evidence and changes that trust has been rebuilt. And we have decided, hey, this is really, really important that other couples understand this process and understand what it looks like to actually make it through this. What changes actually need to happen? What aha moments need to happen? What connections that weren't there need to happen? What do both partners need in this process? So tonight we're going to be talking about, should I take this personal? And there's definitely more to this than meets the eye. So make sure you watch all the way through because we're going to get through several aspects of that. But you want to share the conversation that we had, or you want me to share that part first?
Yeah, I guess before we go a little any further, one of the things that we mentioned is that we're not therapists, we're coaches, but we absolutely see the value in needing both at the same time, because there's different capabilities that coaches have that therapists don't, and also there's different capabilities that therapists have that coaches don't. And certain
limitations that both have, and right. Yeah, they can't both provide the same thing. Coaches can provide a lot more personal experience and guidance and a structured program. Therapists have to go by specific ways that they've been taught to do therapy, and they have to a lot of times kind of allow the person to come up with their own answers. So there's not a lot of personal advice or direction that they can give always. So yeah, it's really important to have both, I think. It's not one or the other. It's really both.
Yeah. And that's really one of the things that we find so valuable is that when you're given the information and the advice where it's like, this is the experience, here's what you're needing to do, you can use that and take that into a therapy session, and you can make your session much more effective when you actually show up with a purpose and a plan of what it is that you want to achieve that day.
Yeah. So the conversation that I'm talking about is actually, it was pretty far along in this process because we were starting to create this program for our future clients. And I can't remember all the context around this statement, but you made a statement that said something about, and I'll tell you what, you guys, this program, we had so many different times throughout this creation of this program where we both would get triggered by things that we were talking about and working through. And it was even part of our process to create this. But yeah, so he said to me, well, something about, well, it really isn't personal. And I looked at him and I said, are you fucking kidding me? Are you serious right now? And he meant it at that stage, at that time, he meant it, and he thought I would get it. And I kind of did, but I was so offended and triggered by that statement. And I was like, I think what hurt me the most was that it felt like he only saw his side of it at that moment and wasn't really seeing how personal it really was. And I said, are you serious? Because this affects everything for women. This affects the way we see ourselves. It affects the way that you see us. It affects our partners see us. It affects the way that we function in our world and the way that we see other women. It affects our ability to focus and have any kind of presentness in our life because we're so hyper vigilant and we're hurting so bad from betrayal. It affects literally everything about our life. And that's really fucking personal. So that's why, the answer is yes, it's personal, but there's also more to it than that. That's really important that as women, we begin to understand, and it's hard. It's really hard, but that's the key to the couple being able to move forward together with this is really, we got to understand why they, until they get to a certain point in their recovery, see this as not personal. And they have to understand how this is so fucking personal for us, right? That's the secret, really. That's where the healing can really start to begin.
Yeah, and really the journey for the guy is, how do I get to this place where it's not personal to where it is? Because in order for it to be personal, that means that there's pain associated with it, right? And if there's no pain that's associated with the behavior or the action, it means that we're not losing anything. So for the men, the reason it's not personal is because they don't have a bond built with you to begin with. There's no authentic
partner.
Right. There's no authentic emotional connection there. And so because there's a lack of that connection, there's no pain from a detachment from you. But for the women, it's the opposite. That's why there is the pain. That's why it is so personal, because you are attached to that person. You're very emotionally connected. It's
very much like what we were talking about a couple weeks ago, which if you haven't seen that one, make sure to see it. But we talked about how, most men that begin using this at a really young age, they actually form an attachment to pornography. They don't know that's happening for them. But why in the world would they be so afraid to not have that anymore and let it go, right? Why do men get so angry and defensive when it's brought up, right? Because they have an attachment already to this thing that, you are actually the mistress to this thing, and they may have some attachment to you, but it's not a secure attachment. It's not a full attachment. So when this starts to come in between you, where is the stronger attachment, right? Like that's really the problem that we're dealing with here, is that why it doesn't feel personal is because for men, this has always been there for them. It's always been something that they've done with or without you in their life. So, and it doesn't really have to do with you, because you could literally be the most perfect model in the entire world with everything about you perfect. You could have even the most amazing personality to go with it, and you still wouldn't be enough to compete with all the millions of other people in the world. And nor should you ever have to. Nor should you ever have to. But that's the reality that we're here with why it doesn't feel personal to men, because it's not about you. Right. So therefore you shouldn't take it personal, right?
Yeah. And it's interesting because for men, it's not personal. But when a woman tells us that it is personal, and they're very emotional about it, and they're very direct, and they're very, standing up for their emotional needs, to us, it's like, we take that very personally.
Yeah.
We take it
It's
very
like we're
personally that you are trying to impose the way that it feels for you onto us. And it feels personal that you're trying to show us that there's something wrong with us. And there's not anything wrong with us. There's just something that wasn't developed the way that it was meant to. Mm-hmm. And so...
And we have all of the belief systems from society, supporting those beliefs and thoughts, right, that it's normal and every guy does it and that it's harmless.
And so that's like the missing disconnect that couples really need to understand, is that, yes, 100% it is personal. And in a monogamous relationship, it should be personal for both people. That's the goal. We want to get to a place where this is personal to both of us, and me even imagining Katie doing something unfaithful is extremely hurtful and painful, to think that she would do something like that and go outside of our relationship and give that energy that is meant for me and be giving it to somebody else. Like, yeah, I get it now. Mm-hmm. But at the beginning of the process, that wasn't developed. And so we have to acknowledge what is and say, okay, even though this is the way that it's supposed to be in a monogamous relationship, it is extremely personal for me, and it's not for him because he is not connected to me. He's not emotionally attached to me.
And he has a lot of faulty belief systems.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so in order for him to be able to understand my side of things and what it's like for me, and to really put himself in my shoes, he needs to be able to project the pain of the loss of the connection that you guys have. And if there's no connection there for him to be able to even project what the pain of that loss would be, then of course he doesn't understand. He doesn't even know what it is to try and fathom of what it is that you're experiencing, because he's never had that attachment with you.
And he's never had the experience. And that was something we were talking about in our group call the other night was, we have so many strikes against the ability for both partners to feel empathy for each other, because we've got, the fact that as humans in general, we tend to not be able to feel a lot of emotional depth and connection empathetically for something that we've never been through ourselves. And yet when we have gone through something ourselves, like if you think about having been through something really hard in your life, right? Like maybe you've lost somebody really close to you, or maybe you have had your home burned down. I had my home burned down when I was a child. Maybe you've had a chronic illness you've dealt with. Like those are things that if somebody else came to you and you had gone through them, your heart would just break, because you know how hard that is, right? So we have that just standard of human existence that when we've gone through something, that's where we can really connect emotionally to that pain. And yet if someone comes to us and is hurting from something that we've never been through, we can care and we can feel compassion, but to have that same depth of emotional connection to the pain, it's just lacking, right?
And before we go on, I think that this leads into a really good point, which is that if you say, okay, well, how come when I ask him to try and put himself in my shoes and understand what if it were different? What if there was something that happened to him where I did betray him? Because this is actually something that we had happen in our relationship, and the disconnect was still there for me even when Katie actually betrayed me. Mm-hmm. And the disconnect was so real for me that it didn't even faze me. I was like so logic about it and understanding of why she would do what she did.
Yeah, there's more disconnect than just not having been through it.
And the bond wasn't established yet between the two of us. So there was no pain. There was no breaking of the bond because there's no bond to be broken.
No attachment, yeah.
And
so to share a little bit about that, when we were together for about a year or so, that's kind of when all of this really began to come to light, and the issue of him being addicted to pornography was starting to become obvious that there was a problem. So my history in my previous relationship was that I was in a very emotionally and psychologically abusive relationship where I was very much made to believe that I didn't matter, and never did I feel wanted, seen, attractive. And I had worked really hard to feel good about myself. I'd lost a whole lot of weight, and I finally got myself out of that relationship. So a year into my relationship with Rick, as this porn addiction is becoming very apparent and his attraction to me is going down, his ability to even like notice me when I would get ready and dress up or do anything, he wouldn't even notice. I felt invisible again. And I was really, really hurt by that. And we were having conversations about this. And so one night we were weekly meal prepping at that time. And one night he decided that he didn't want to stay up and meal prep with me. So he just went to bed. And, I'm sure I probably imagine that you probably were using pornography that night. And not that was the reason for this, but I was just very lonely and I was hurting from the feeling of being invisible again. And I was drinking wine and I drank too much and my judgment was off. And I had previously felt when I met Rick and I found him on a dating site, I remember feeling finally like I was wanted, finally like men actually were noticing me. And because I was single for the first time in 20 years. And so having that kind of attention felt so good. It was like, finally I get to feel like I'm a feminine person that actually matters, that men notice me. And so when he went to bed and I was struggling and I was intoxicated, I got on a dating site and I put my pictures back up because I was looking for somebody to notice me. And they did, but I never talked to anybody. I think I shut it down within a few minutes, but still I did that. It was an action that I did and it was betrayal. The next day I realized the depth of that betrayal and what I had done. And I told him about it. I couldn't handle it and knew that it could mean that we were going to break up over it possibly. Hope not. But when I told him, he was basically like, oh, okay, well, that's fine. I get it. Like there was no, like he was just saying, there was no connection there to that betrayal. There was such a detachment from what I had done, and it didn't hurt him the way it should have hurt him. And I mean, I was like, it was really hard for me to even see that because it even made me feel even more like I didn't matter. It's like, what? You're not hurt by the fact that I just did something like that. So, I mean, it's just terrible to think about what this does to people in their relationships. And can you explain a little bit more, if you don't mind, what do you think was the reason for that disconnect? You said that it's because you hadn't fully attached to me yet and you were attached to porn. Is that what you believe it was?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when we think about what is it that's happening when we're having an orgasm and we're looking at porn, we are bonding and attaching to it, right? That's the experience that we're supposed to get to have and share with our primary attachment figure. And we know from science that when we have that orgasm, there's chemicals being released in our brain that's literally physically creating an emotional attachment to that thing. And so if it's for years and years and years been to pornography, and that's where my secure attachment is, where I am accepted and I can be vulnerable and I'm never judged. I can do whatever I want, and I don't have to fear anything about being attacked. And so to have my connection there, and then to not have my connection with whoever it is that I was dating. Like, there's never a relationship that I was ever in my life where there was any sort of secure attachment there. And that's why the disconnect. Like, you're literally attached to the pornography before a partner even comes into the picture. Pornography is already fulfilling your emotional needs.
And I should add too, real quick, that when we say the word pornography, also this applies to
not porn,
literally anything that can create that type of attachment outside of a real person and one exclusive relationship.
Right. It could be just conversations with people, even if the conversations look completely innocent to an outsider looking in. If the feelings that you have in your body as the man are unfaithful, where you are getting aroused, you're getting excited about these different conversations that you're having with other women,
or you're feeling like you're getting what I was looking for on the app, right? Like looking for feeling attractive, admiration, desired, wanted, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Any sort of feeling like that, where we're allowing those feelings to fester while we're engaging with somebody else. Yeah, that's all like encompassing of, when we say pornography, we mean all of it.
Yeah,
all obvious behavioral acts and subtle unfaithful acts, like all of it. Like, when we say porn, we're just talking about everything.
It all is the same. Right. It really is. So back to the points that we have for tonight. I really want to emphasize that the key here, and I also need to preface this, that not every woman is able to grasp this right now, because they're at the very beginning stages of this. They are absolutely devastated by betrayal, and they're just barely keeping their head above water. There's no room in their brain to hold space for more than that reality. And I just want to say that that's okay. It makes so much sense. I understand betrayal trauma. He now understands betrayal trauma so much better. This message right now isn't for you, but it's for later. And whether you stay in the relationship or you don't, this is still really important information that eventually, hopefully you can be able to hold, because it will help with your healing. But anyways, if you're in a relationship right now and, this isn't so fresh that you're just barely surviving, and you're able to take time to kind of try and hold what we're trying to share with you tonight, then I really encourage you to do it, because this is the key. Like, literally, if you don't get this at some point in the process, then your relationship won't recover. Like, that's how big a deal this is. So this was a key component for my healing, to be able to not abandon myself or my pain or my truth or the reality of how personal it was, but be able to take that truth and hold another truth, which was his reality, that it wasn't personal. So I had to hold the truth of it being personal and the truth of it not being personal at the same time, and understand more about why it wouldn't be personal for him. Like, asking the question, instead of saying with anger, how can you not understand how personal this is? I had to take a step back and pause and say, why does it make sense that for him this doesn't feel personal? Why, as a human being, and it's not like it's just him, why for millions of men going through this, why is that disconnect there? Why does it not feel personal to them? And to be able to understand that is a huge part of my ability to move forward. It wasn't just that, though. The other part of that is that he was able to hold the fact that it was maybe not personal to him, but finally connect and get that how personal it really was for me.
Yeah. And I think the key to that is really learning, like what you're describing right now is caring for each other, and having a shared expectation that, yeah, this is unfaithful. And me being able to take into consideration the different things of how that makes you feel, and really internalizing and reflecting on the different things that I did and being able to say, yeah, I can absolutely see how that is personal to you. And I can understand why that would hurt so much based on what it is that you're describing to me of the connection that you feel that you have with me. And when I do these things, that's completely broken, that there's just this huge rupture there. It makes a lot of sense why that would feel so personal.
And not just the act of itself, but the betrayal, like the lying, the hiding, the deceiving, it's like there's just so much there that we can't get out into it all tonight. But yeah, there's just so much that is so personal and so hurtful. So what it really takes is for both partners to understand both sides.
And really to say, what do we have to do to continue to move closer together to where we're actually establishing a secure attachment so that for him it's also becoming personal.
Right. We want to move him over on this side.
Right, absolutely.
And I'm sure that I haven't looked at the questions yet. I can pull up and see if there are any, but I'm sure one of the questions is, well, how did he come over and know that it is personal? Like, was that just like an overnight thing? Did something just click one day? And it looks like there aren't any questions right now. And it was, there was the trauma that we went through where he lost our relationship and he had to finally understand like what he needed to tap into the pain that he realized he wasn't feeling about losing our relationship and our family. So there was kind of like a traumatic time that something did click for him, but it wasn't like it all happened at once. It was a gradual process where, things started to fall into place slowly after that as he allowed himself to continue to feel those things. And I will tell you, like, over the last several years, like the progression of his ability to really get this and get what it has done, what it was doing to me and what it's done to so many other women who we see every day are hurting and just devastated by this. The connections have gotten deeper and deeper and stronger over time. Just that's the way our brains work. It's like these connections take time to happen. We can have an immediate thing happen from trauma, but even trauma doesn't solidify something forever. You do have to continue to build upon that connection and give it more and more frames of reference so that it gets stronger and stronger and stronger.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And now to the point to where we are now, we're just so grateful for all of the work that we did do to get to this point. And every day that we wake up, like this is what we're doing. This is our mission, is to help couples to overcome this so that they can reach the place where we are. And it doesn't happen without intentional daily work on both parts. Mm-hmm. And my heart, like the emotional pain that I just feel for couples who are out there and they're in the places that we were at 2, 3, 4 years ago, and just thinking about the difficulty and the disconnect and the pain that the woman is going through and how he doesn't get it, and how the interplay between the different behaviors are really holding people back is just heartbreaking. Mm-hmm. And that's literally why we're like, okay, we've got something here. We need to do something that's going to be able to help couples to get through this. And that's mm-hmm. really the heart behind the program that we did create to help couples. And so if you're in that place and you can see our relationship dynamics are terrible, but if you can both also get to a place where there's consideration for each other and care when you're in a non-triggered state, then that's something where it's like, okay, we can have a conversation and we can move something forward. So if you'd like to get on a clarity call with us, we do free 30-minute clarity calls with couples where we'll sit down, we'll kind of look at the relationship dynamics that you have going on, and we can give you our best advice based on our experience of what we believe it is that you're needing in order to get on the same page and mm-hmm. to be able to start moving in the same direction, moving forward together.
Mm-hmm. And that call is also something that we'll use to kind of evaluate what it makes sense to talk about the program and what that would look like to work with us. So if it's the program that you're interested in, that is your first step, is to get on the clarity call with us. And then we can see if it seems like it's going to be a good fit both directions.
Yeah.
So So,
if you guys have any questions, go ahead and leave them in the comments, and we'll get to you as soon as we can.
yep. All right, guys, have a great night. We will see you next week.
Enjoy your weekend.
Bye.